Something strange is happening inside the Western alliance. A stealth fighter, once sold as the absolute backbone of future air defense, is now at the very center of political standoffs and a rising tide of strategic distrust. This isn't just about military hardware anymore. This is about power, money, and national sovereignty. It started in Switzerland, a nation known for precision and fiscal caution. They signed the papers for the world's most advanced fighter jet, believing they had a locked-in price. But then the bill came due, and it was threatening to be over $1 billion higher than promised. Their decision to slash the order sent a shockwave through the defense world, exposing a deep vulnerability at the heart of the F-35 program. But this is where the story gets complicated. As the Swiss crisis unfolds, another American ally, Canada, is moving in a puzzling direction. While publicly claiming to be reviewing its own massive F-35 commitment, in the face of President Donald Trump's America First agenda, Ottawa has been quietly making payments to secure its place in line for more jets. It's a profound contradiction that lays bare the central dilemma of our time. In a world being reshaped by transactional geopolitics, is buying the F-35 a prudent investment in security, or is it a political loyalty test that could trap a nation in a gilded cage? With Donald Trump fundamentally rewriting the rules of the alliance, could Canada be the next to face an impossible choice? To understand the crisis facing Canada, you first have to understand what happened in Switzerland. This wasn't just a simple budget dispute. It was the public unraveling of a promise that formed the bedrock of one of the largest military procurements in Swiss history. It all began in September 2020. Through a national referendum, a hallmark of their direct democracy, the Swiss people narrowly approved a budget of 6 billion Swiss francs to modernize their aging air force. The government's choice was the Lockheed Martin F-35A. They campaigned hard, assuring the public that the American jet was the most capable choice and that its price was locked in. With that assurance, the deal for 36 state-of-the-art fighters was signed in September 2022, and Switzerland was officially on the path to joining the elite club of F-35 operators, with deliveries scheduled to begin in 2027. But the ink on the contract was barely dry before the ground began to shift. The F-35 program operates on a production lot system where international orders are bundled together. This means the final price isn't set when a country signs its initial agreement, but rather when its specific batch of jets goes into production, a system highly vulnerable to global economic shocks. And those shocks came hard and fast. The Pentagon began citing rampant inflation and severe supply chain disruptions as driving up costs for the entire program. Suddenly, the fixed price the Swiss government had promised its people began to look more like a rough estimate. The first public sign of trouble came when the U.S. government made its position clear. The contract was not the ironclad guarantee the Swiss believed it to be. Washington pointed to clauses in the agreement clarifying that while the jets would be purchased using fixed-price contracts, the final contract price could still differ from the initial estimate. In the complex world of foreign military sales, this was the fine print that would ultimately break the deal. The financial fallout was staggering. The U.S. government informed Switzerland of potential price hikes, with Swiss government estimates projecting that additional costs could balloon by up to 1.3 billion Swiss francs, or roughly 1.5 billion US dollars. For a procurement capped by a legally binding public referendum, this wasn't just a cost overrun. It was a political and constitutional crisis in the making. The situation was then massively inflamed by geopolitics. The Trump administration, pursuing its aggressive trade agenda, had previously threatened a 39% tariff on Swiss exports. While not directly tied to the fighter deal, the tariff created immense political and financial pressure, souring relations and fueling public outrage. The message from Washington, whether intended or not, was received loud and clear in Bern. The price of partnership was going up. Public opinion, once narrowly in favor, turned decisively against the deal. The government was cornered. In a statement on December 12, 2025, the Swiss Federal Department of Defense announced the inevitable. Due to foreseeable additional costs, it is not financially viable to maintain the originally planned number of 36 F-35As. They weren't canceling the program entirely. Instead, they instructed the Defense Ministry to purchase the maximum possible number of F-35s within the approved envelope. The Swiss government was forced to retreat, reducing its order to an as-yet unspecified number of aircraft that would fit inside the original budget. It was a brutal lesson in the realities of modern arms deals and a cautionary tale that would echo across every Allied capital, especially Ottawa. Switzerland's decision to reduce its order wasn't an isolated event. It was a symptom of a much larger disease, exposing the three fundamental dilemmas that now haunt the entire F-35 program. These are the very issues that Canada is now grappling with. Issues that turn a simple procurement decision into a high-stakes geopolitical gamble, inescapable technological dependence, alarming operational readiness issues, and the black hole of soaring, unseen costs. Let's start with the most critical and least understood problem: technological dependence. When a country buys an F-35, it isn't just buying an airplane, it is buying into a closed, American-controlled ecosystem. The jet's brain is a complex networked logistics system, originally known as ALICE, and now called ODIN. This system governs everything from mission planning to maintenance schedules and spare parts orders. Every flight and every diagnostic test generates a massive stream of data that is fed back to a central network managed by Lockheed Martin and the Pentagon. For allied nations, this creates a profound sovereignty dilemma. Militaries that operate the F-35 do not have the right to manage their own maintenance independently or directly purchase spare parts from third parties. This dependency is the F-35's greatest strength and its most dangerous vulnerability. It allows for seamless interoperability among allies, but it also means that the operational readiness of an entire air force is contingent on the political goodwill of Washington. This has given rise to persistent fears of a kill switch, a rumored capability for the U.S. to ground the global F-35 fleet remotely. While Lockheed Martin and allied defense officials have always denied this, the fundamental architecture makes it a technical concern for some. With rising distrust in American foreign policy, nations are being forced to ask themselves a terrifying question: what's our plan B? The second core dilemma is the F-35's dismal record on operational readiness. For all its advanced technology, a fighter jet is useless if it can't fly. The F-35 program has been plagued for years by disturbingly low mission-capable rates, the percentage of aircraft in a fleet that are ready to perform at least one of their designated missions. A recent U.S. Government Accountability Office (GAO) report revealed a shocking statistic. The F-35 fleet is mission-ready only about 55% of the time, far below its targets. To put that in perspective, older fighters often post readiness rates well above 70%. This means that on any given day, nearly half of the world's most expensive fighters might be grounded, waiting for repairs, software patches, or spare parts from the centralized U.S.-controlled supply chain. The crucial Block 4 software upgrade, which is supposed to unlock the F-35's full combat potential, is years behind schedule and billions over budget. This forces a difficult trade-off. Allies are buying a fifth-generation capability on paper, but in practice, they are often operating a fleet with the readiness of a much less reliable system, all while paying a premium price. And that brings us to the third and most explosive dilemma: the soaring, unseen costs. The Swiss crisis was triggered by sticker shock on the purchase price, but that is just the tip of a colossal iceberg. The true financial burden of the F-35 lies in its astronomical operating and support costs. The Pentagon's own estimate for the total life cycle cost of its planned fleet has now topped an almost incomprehensible $2 trillion. This makes it the most expensive weapons program in human history. A large portion of that is for sustainment, everything from spare parts to software updates. The GAO has repeatedly warned that these sustainment costs continue to rise. Canada's own parliamentary budget officer projects the total life cycle cost for its fleet will be around $74 billion. This is the toxic combination of issues that Switzerland collided with: a promise of a fixed price that wasn't fixed, a dependence on a technological ecosystem it couldn't control, and the prospect of ballooning operational costs for a fleet that struggles to stay in the air. It's a cautionary tale that lays bare the immense risks any nation takes when it commits to the F-35. And right now, no country is more exposed to these risks than Canada. While Switzerland was forced into a public retreat, Canada was navigating its own F-35 paradox. The story of Canada's F-35 journey is a long and tortured one, marked by political reversals and intense debate. After years of controversy, the government selected the F-35A in 2022, committing to an 88-aircraft program with an initial acquisition cost of $19 billion. The first 16 jets were formally approved and scheduled for delivery starting in late 2026. Then came the return of Donald Trump and the escalation of his America First trade policy. In response to new tariff threats, the Canadian government announced in 2025 that it was launching a full review of the F-35 deal, linking the massive defense procurement directly to the ongoing diplomatic tensions. Publicly, the message was one of caution, suggesting Canada was hitting pause. But behind the curtain, a different story was unfolding. As reported by CBC News in February 2026, the Canadian government had quietly started to make payments for long lead components for an additional 14 F-35s. These components must be ordered years in advance to secure a country's spot in the production sequence. The Department of National Defense had even reported $476 million in additional spending on the fighter replacement program, without publicly specifying that the funds were being used to secure aircraft beyond the initial 16. This is what analysts call a tell. Governments don't spend hundreds of millions on long-lead items unless they intend to clear the runway for the final purchase. By making these payments, Ottawa was ensuring it wouldn't lose its place in the production queue, even while its official position was one of indecision. It was a strategic contradiction, publicly reviewing the deal while privately taking steps to lock in a larger fleet. This places Canada at a perilous crossroads. This industrial anxiety has opened the door for a powerful alternative: the Saab Gripen from Sweden. Recognizing Canada's dilemma, Saab has made an aggressive pitch, proposing to assemble Gripen fighter jets within Canada. The offer promises thousands of high-tech jobs and a revitalization of Canada's aerospace industry. The Gripen isn't just a different plane, it represents a different philosophy, one that prioritizes sovereign control and industrial benefits over total integration into an American system. This leads to the most urgent issue: Canada's strategic off-ramp may be closing. Many defense analysts believe a mixed fleet is a viable outcome for Canada. A smaller number of F-35s for NATO interoperability, supplemented by a larger fleet of domestically supported Gripens for sovereignty patrols. This approach is common among many allies and offers a pragmatic balance. However, the quiet payments for 14 more F-35s undermine this very strategy. Every dollar spent on long lead items for the F-35 is a dollar not available for an alternative. Every step taken to secure a place in the F-35 production line makes a pivot to a mixed fleet more difficult. The Swiss were forced to scale back by a budget crisis. Canada, through its own quiet actions, may be locking itself into a far larger commitment, just as the geopolitical risks are reaching a boiling point. So, where does this leave us? The story of the F-35 is no longer just about stealth technology. The decision to buy this aircraft has become a defining political act, a loyalty test in an alliance under strain. Switzerland's budget collapse served as a global wake-up call. It demonstrated in stark financial terms the profound risks of a program where fixed prices are illusory and cost overruns are systemic. Their decision to reduce their order was an act of fiscal self-preservation, honoring the mandate given to them by their own people. Canada presents a much more complex and perhaps more troubling picture. Facing an openly transactional U.S. administration, the Canadian government appears caught in a strategic trap. It publicly holds up the F-35 deal as a point of review, while privately funneling hundreds of millions of dollars into securing more of the very same aircraft. This quiet commitment suggests Ottawa has already decided that the political cost of defying Washington is higher than the financial and strategic risks of deeper dependence. The emergence of the Saab Gripen as a credible, industrially beneficial alternative makes Canada's position all the more poignant. An off-ramp exists, a path toward a mixed fleet, balancing alliance interoperability with sovereign capability, is still technically possible. Yet, with every undisclosed payment for F-35 components, that path narrows. What we are witnessing is the transformation of defense procurement into a raw instrument of geopolitical power. The F-35 program, conceived to bind allies together, is now threatening to turn that bond into a chain. For countries like Switzerland and Canada, the ultimate cost may not be measured in dollars or francs, but in the currency of strategic autonomy. The Swiss have drawn their line in the sand. The question now is whether Canada will draw its own, or continue to walk a tightrope until it can no longer turn back. But now, I want to turn that question over to you. Is Canada's investment in the F-35 a smart move for security, or is it a political trap? Should Ottawa follow the mixed fleet model and invest in its own aerospace industry? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.